Aloha, my kako, everyone. Welcome to another special episode of the Moana Nui podcast. Tonight, we are going to be talking about a movie that is currently streaming on Netflix called Finding ʻOhana. But before we do that, I want to shout out a couple folks who got some cool things going on. Um, First of all, shout out to Dorfis, who has a Kickstarter for Spirit's Destiny that's live right now. I can't remember if she's hitting her goal yet, but I know she's doing great. So go and check that out. It's a Haitian story, kind of a little bit of a coming of age in a way. Great family story. I really enjoyed it. I'm learning a lot about Haitian culture. So check out Spirit's Destiny on Kickstarter. And then the second one, real quick, is Chat and Draw. So Chat and Draw is a live streaming podcast with Mike Watson, and he is currently also on Kickstarter right now. And if you back this weekend, and I think tomorrow too, you can also get our book, The Wildcard Chronicles, for free for being a backer of that one. Chat and Draw is a sponsor for season 2 of the Moana Nui podcast. So please go and check out that campaign as well. Both are with amazing creators, and you won't go wrong with those. Alrighty, so with that said, I am joined tonight by my friends, my amazing friends, Brian Lambert and Crown Shepherd. And tonight we are going to talk about Finding ʻOhana. So before we do that, though, Brian, you want to introduce yourself and let folks know who you are?
Hey, guys. I'm Brian Lambert, president, CEO, magician, wizard of Wingless Comics. We are proud sponsors of the Moana Nui podcast for season 2 as well. It's got a great show going on here. I've been in the comic industry itself for about 3 years now. Obviously writing before that for about 10, 12 years professionally. And I'm a nerd at heart. So checking this movie out was like, I don't know. I want to jump into it so much, but like this is the first part. It was great, and I can't wait for us to get into it.
Yes. Okay, Crown, introduce yourself real quick. Let's see. Get your mic on.
What?
Okay, there. You go introduce yourself real quick.
Oh, me? Oh, what's up? It's Crown. Just making a sandwich right now. Don't worry about me.
All right.
I'm with Brian. I just want to talk about the movie. Let's talk about the movie.
Okay, well, let's go. Okay, who wants to start? Brian?
I guess I'll go because Crown need that sandwich. So go do that, and I will occupy them while you sandwich it up. Man, beginning to end, this movie was dope, right? I know it's Finding ʻOhana. I know that's a name, right? But even from the jump, I was like, oh, Goonies too. Like as soon as I seen it, like as soon as it started, I was like, okay, I got that Goonies vibe. And they got the best. I don't know if you guys take through the credits, but they got the best Goonies cosign you can probably get. With Kiwi Kwan, Data, Short Round being in the movie himself. I was like, oh man, that blew my mind because I didn't know it was him as I'm watching the movie. And then I saw it on the credits and I was like, oh, that's so dope. It's got moments. I mean, they even did the Hey You Guys in there, like the treasure map with the doubloon. It's just all of it. You know what I mean? Like it was great on a number of levels. And I think like a lot of times, I don't want to say, maybe it's not like a young adult film, but like kids or family films, like they treat the audience like they're stupid. You know what I mean? Or like or like they're all children. And this really wasn't that. Like you had the real kid side of it. You had like the teenage side of it. You had the parents. I'm always, honestly, I keep it 100. I'm always like super envious of like island culture because I mean, okay, so it hit everybody hard, right? It hit the whole Western world super hard. And that's why, it's called the Western world and all of that. but there's such a rich, deep culture that Pacific Islanders, and I know that's a bunch of different cultures, so I'm not lumping them all in one, but there are so many cultural elements that go through all of them, and they were able to keep, you know what I mean? And they fought to keep them, you know what I mean? So I think that's beautiful. Like, I see a good haka, you know what I mean? I get a little choked up. I ain't gonna lie, you know what I mean? I see like certain things. I have some really, really good friends, some Samoan cats that I actually haven't seen in quite a bit of time, just because moving around and stuff. But like when I was at their wedding, it was dope. They were like traditions I didn't know that I like learned on the fly. Like I couldn't imagine before this, like me being in a suit, jumping on the ground so my boy could walk across my back. You know what I mean? Because that's like a symbol of honor, you know, and prestige, and like it's just so dope. You know, although like I said, all those traditions and cultural aspects that are kept alive. You know what I mean? And then you get to see him in a flick, and it wasn't. You tell that a lot of the dialogue that was really culturally correct wasn't written, which like if you see a movie like From the Hood, right? Like it'll have somebody saying something and you could tell somebody wrote it for him, like, why you be up in here, bro? And you're like, what? No one talks like that, right? But then you see like the cultural language and when they were talking pidgin and stuff, you know what I mean? Like, you know, they didn't write that. Like they were just like saying like you would say it, you know what I mean? And it just rang, I don't know, it rang true in places. Obviously it was Hollywood and other places, but like, I don't know, man. Like I said, just being able to kind of like soak up that bit of culture and for it to be, okay, obviously it's a cultural movie, right? But the fact that it's just a movie too, you know what I mean? Like that's to me is big because they all give a movie like a caveat, you know, a black movie, an island movie, a Latino movie, blah, 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 which separates it from just a movie, which is what, you know, white culture is just a movie. But then the other cultures have like, you get a subcategory. I like the fact that this is just a movie and you're immersed in a culture that's fucking beautiful. You know what I mean? Like it's gorgeous. Like I said, I dug it beginning to end. Like every piece of it was dope to me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I absolutely love that they incorporated, you know, like the pidgin part of it. When I first watched it, I was watching it with captions on, and you know, folks were talking about like, no, you got to watch it without the captions so you can see when they pop up, you know, the explanations. I was like, oh, okay, because like for me, I'm watching it and I'm like, yeah, I already know it because it's, you know, we speak that way. But yeah, I thought that was really cool. The way they incorporated like a different parts of the pidgin language. I mean, there was just, you know, I was starting to write some of the things down. I was like, oh man, they actually like incorporated a whole bunch in this thing. And, you know, I just thought that was really cool. Like in the post-it notes, like in the journal, like you could see like Hawaiian words and, you know, the researcher in me was like, ooh, I want to pause and, you know, take all the notes and be like, what are they really saying? But, no, I thought it was really cool. And then also like, it's very relatable because like a lot of people who were born and raised in Hawaii often have to move away, mostly for the most part. Either it could be like a military family, or it could be just because of the cost of living is so ridiculous and you can't really raise a family, you know, in that type of environment, which is sad. But just having, you know, like the kids coming back and, you know, trying to connect to their papa who, you know, at least for, what's her name? What was the youngest one? Oh, Pili. Like Pili never knew her papa because they left when she was a baby, right? So like trying to reconnect to her roots in that way, like for him to be kind of be a stranger, but then to see them connect, I thought that was really cool. And the family dynamic is funny too. Like her brother was such a tool. I was like, oh my God.
That's such a shame because there were so many parts. I was like, oh, that's totally me. Like when they were talking about the muscles like the first time, and he was like, oh yeah, I have muscles. I was like, oh yeah, oops. Like, oh yeah, okay.
I loved the brother. Like he was funny. He was like comic relief, you know, throughout the movie. Like when he was on the rope screaming. Like I only went to one CrossFit class. Like I was dead. I was like hollering. Like he was your typical tool, but he's not a tool. He was like acting like one because that's what he thought he had to act like. So it was nice to see his character blossom and like accept himself, his roots. Like, because
Yeah.
in the
Well, then he
beginning,
wasn't like a
he wouldn't
buffoon.
accept his room, his name or anything.
Yeah, exactly. And I have had friends who have done that too. I mean, even for a while myself, like Moana is actually only half of my first name. But people even struggle with that. So I'll just go with Mo. But it takes away a little bit, like it makes it easier for people. But like my real name is Moana, and longer. So yeah, I could totally relate to that too.
I like
Yeah.
there's a quote that's like, if they could say Dostoevsky, like, you know what I mean? Like they can pronounce any other name, or like if we
Yes.
have all these super. That's another thing. Okay, so this is another thing I love, and don't get me wrong, I realize I write Justice Comics, right? Like that's my comic imprint on Wingless. It's about an angel, and so I got all these Judeo-Christian ideas in there and exploring. It's not a Christian comic, but it has that mythology.
Mhm.
What I loved was this movie got to stick with, and I don't want to call it a mythology again, you know what I mean? But the religious aspects and the cultural aspects of the actual culture, right? Like there's this thing in kind of Western nations and Judeo-Christian nations where if somebody says they're talking to their ancestors, or they thought about their ancestors or whatever else, it's like, oh my God, that's bad. Oh, it's demonic. It's evil, right?
Yep.
But like the Judeo-Christian tradition, pray, if you're Catholic, right? You pray to Mary, you pray to the saints, and da 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 da, right? And then you have the other side of it where it's like, oh yeah, your relative that passed is looking down on you, and they're your guardian angels now. So it's like, well, what's the difference between that and an ancestor that you know what I mean? Like you're trying to talk to, trying to connect with. And I just love that aspect of like they were frightening because of the situations the ancestors were frightening because of the situations people put them in. But
Mm.
given the right circumstance, when the person is doing the right thing, then those ancestors are there to protect you and hold you and even show you love. Like she got to feel the love of her father that she didn't know. You know what I mean? Because he died when she was so young. Like that to me, dude, you don't get that all the time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was very clever the way they incorporated him into the Night Marchers. When I saw the boots, I was like, "Oh man, that's her dad."
Right.
And I just thought that was so touching because it was a way for them to kind of have some closure in a way, but also bridge a gap, in that culture, right? Like, for the entire family, really. I mean, because they were all there.
Yeah.
And yeah, like kind of to go to your point, like they demonize culture, like indigenous cultures because they don't understand it. And if you fear something, then you're gonna, make it like this big boogeyman. Whereas, like, why don't you just flip that on its head and just make an effort to learn, and respect
Right.
another's beliefs? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
if you want someone to respect yours, then why not return the favor instead of like making everybody who doesn't believe what you do into this bad person, right? I mean, I think
Yeah.
that kind of permeates into a lot of conversations and conflicts that you find in just about anything. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was dope, and even having the grandfather, like he's praying, just like all the connections, right? He's praying as it's happening, and like I said, man, for me, I love experiences like that, right? Because even as Americans, you're not going to get that, right? Like if we pretend that we have some colorblind society, which we don't, you're not going to get the same story. You know what I mean? Like you're
Mhm.
not going to get that depth of like you're just not going to have it, right? Like even some of I love the Goonies, right? But you're not going to have Brand and Mikey's mom praying for them. You know what I mean? So that they get saved, and they're okay when they're dealing with One-Eye Willie. But like here, it makes so much sense because the whole thing, the culture is intertwined. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With the land, with who they are, with everything about it. And I did see E as like reclaiming some of that, because
Mhm.
being a transplant to New York, and and on and on and on. I mean, it makes sense. Okay, cool. You become a townie. You become a regular person, right?
Yeah.
Or what they would consider a regular person. But then, in order to do that, he had to lose all the culture. Then
Mm-hmm.
he meets the chick. I forget her name, but she was fine as hell. Let me just say that she was
Oh,
fine.
Hana. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she was fine. But he meets her, right, and she's actually like dancing the line between the two, right? She's got the links to her culture, and she loves Meghan Trainor. You know, it's like I said, and so to see, I love seeing Indigenous people. I love seeing people of color being able to reclaim something that is theirs. As a Black man, as an African American, like even that term, right? African American, that's a whole continent that I'm supposed to identify with. And that's a disservice to each culture that's on the continent, because it lumps them all into one. So to be able to see like people of color, Indigenous people, be able to reclaim like their actual culture, right? Like to reclaim, you know, when you see an Aztec, you know what I mean, like ceremony or something, and seeing that, and like I said, Pacific Islanders, you see that, you see all these different things, and it's, you know, oh man, I just think it's dope because you can't get that anywhere else.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. What about you, Crown? Quiet away. You eating your sandwich?
I was letting him, yeah, I'm making my sandwich. I was letting him talk, you know, but like I agree with everything he was saying, you know. I like that they didn't do the cliche things that you see in typical Hawaiian movies or movies, you know, like made in Hawaii. You know, like you didn't see the hula dancers, and then you didn't see the dancing. You know, and I'm not knocking those things. They are beautiful, but it's like it doesn't have to be with every movie. You know what I mean? So I enjoyed the fact that they didn't. They showed us different parts of Hawaii. So I said that I felt like I learned so much because in your typical movie about Hawaii, that's what you see. But in this, I learned so much more. They spoke so much more Hawaiian. I learned so much more about like their traditions and like how she gave the offering to the cave and how they felt about the, you know, the burial. Like I kind of looked that up to see if that was true and everything. So it's just like you learn something new, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, I like the gift at the, you know, at the cave too, because I mean you see that in a lot of different we call them heiaus, which is basically the sacred temples, or what used to be, you know, when folks approach those to bring offerings in as a sign of respect. But even like you know, like the part about you know, like hiding the bones in the cave, because those were usually done for our chiefs, because, you know, their bones were said to have mana, which, you know, it is definitely a belief. And so to have that incorporated in the story, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool too, you know. It surprised me. Like the trailer, I'm gonna be honest, when I watched the trailer, I was like, I'm like, I'm feeling the Goonies vibe, but like for culturally, right, as a native Hawaiian person, as a Kanaka, I'm like, oh God, are they gonna do another cheesy one again? You know, like, is this gonna be another Aloha or some, you know, like, with no, you know, no native Hawaiians in it, you know, like it's just a bunch of white people in Hawaii, right? Like, no, it's that's not what it is, you know, like there are white people in Hawaii, yes, but that should not be the focus, especially of a cultural film, you know, so.
Wasn't it Peely, the little girl, the main star? Wasn't she Hawaiian? Like what? And was this her like introductory movie?
Yes, I'm not sure if her family's from my island, because I just found out that one of my aunties, I was talking to her last night, and she actually knows like Peely's grandma, or Kea is her real name. Kea's grandma. I was like, oh, auntie, can you put me in touch with Kea's grandma? I want to see if I can get her on the podcast. I think it would be amazing to have like not just a Kanaka, but also a young one, you know, someone who's coming up and everything. So spoiler alert, that's I'm working on that. But yeah, she is from the islands, and her family is as well. So hopefully I can, you know, have her come on and we can hear from her. But yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah. And like the guy who played the grandpa Kimo, he's been on a bunch of stuff. I think he's been on like Hawaii Five-0, and you know, he's from when he was younger too, like you know, a bunch of different series and stuff. But the guy who played the father, I've never seen him before. I'm really glad that he was actually Kanaka, you know, like someone who is actually native Hawaiian. And then Kelly, who is, you know, she has roots to Hawaii too. She's not, you know, Hawaiian koko, you know, with the blood. But, you know, if you think about actors or actresses from Hawaii, a lot of people will you know, mention her name. So it was cool to see her in this as well. And then the boy, what is the boy's name? Cooper. Oh my God, he was hilarious. The little white boy, the ginger.
Oh, he was so bruh. I was also happy again as a black man. I was happy, right? Because like there's been a big debate. I mean, it's always been a debate, but I feel like it's getting bigger now, where you have like the magical Negro or whatever, and then they can do all this stuff, but they can't be the hero. I ain't gonna lie, I love the magical white boy because he had all the answers, he had all the secrets, he knew a bunch of stuff, but he wasn't that guy. And I think he just did a real good job of like, I don't want to say blending into the surroundings, but I felt like all of it felt pretty natural. None of it felt tacked on, right? It's not like they just, here, let me give you another little piece and another little piece. Some of the recent criticisms, let's say something like Soul, right? And Soul, some of the recent criticisms was like, it felt tacked on. It felt like, okay, like, it's a story about a black dude, but it really wasn't. It was a story about something else, so the black part was tacked on. I didn't feel like this happened there. I was like, nah, it really is a story about the kids and the family. And even though you have these other characters coming out, they didn't take up the focus. You know what I mean? Like they didn't eat up the screen time. And
right.
I don't know. I think they played. I just really think they played it right. I think, like I said, I think he's a great actor. he had me dying because I think all of them were like good because like. He wasn't he was like goofy, but he wasn't like a buffoon. He didn't have to go overboard to be dumb. Hana wasn't like overly like mean and she's that girl that you got to break down. Like the stereotypes, like they played to some of them like a little bit. No, excuse me, I have to say they played to like characterizations, but they didn't play to the stereotypes. You know what I mean? And so I like that part of it. Like, no, you can play to a characterization like this dude's the funny one, that one's the smart one, that one's the pretty one, blah blah blah. But like they didn't stereotype them. They still had like depth and stuff. And I love that. Because again, you're not gonna do that a lot of times.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. Hey, Latoya. We got someone else coming and joining us tonight. Latoya. Latoya has Hawaii roots too.
Yeah.
How are you?
Yep, I do. I'm good. How are you all doing?
We're good. So we were just talking about the movie and talking about like the different characters in the story. Did you have a favorite character or what did you think about the movie?
Well, first of all, I love the movie. Loved it. It was so nice to see people of color as like all the main characters. But I'm gonna just tell y'all now, I don't know what the actor that's the father of like the children. I don't know what his real name is. Cool. Let me tell y'all how fine he is. I ain't never seen him before, but I'm about to follow him on Instagram and Twitter. Okay.
Yes.
Y'all see where my head was at. I think the character's name is Kua, I think, but I don't know what his real name is.
Yeah, Kua was his name. What was his last name? Kalili. I can't remember the second half. I'll have to go look at the credits again. But yeah, I thought it was so dope that they had, like a Kanaka dad, because you don't see that very often. I just loved it, even though he only had a small part. Yeah, and the way
it was important. It was a really important role for the story.
Yeah, definitely. I was just, earlier I was saying that it was really cool because his character kind of bridged the two, the cultures from being, distant and then, being at home in Hawaii. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Latoya? Because you're someone who has, has spent some time in Hawaii and then are now living outside as well.
Yeah, so a little bit about me in terms of that. I feel like the kids in the film, like growing up, I'm not necessarily, I didn't grow up in New York, like a big city. I grew up in Ohio and then moved to Atlanta, and now I live in Maryland. But it's interesting to be able to actually see kids or characters that I could relate to on screen, because I'm like, I didn't necessarily grow up around the culture. Like I've been to Hawaii, my grandma's from there, her family's from there, but culturally it wasn't a really big thing in our household to celebrate the language and all of the traditions and customs and sort of things like that. So it was nice to be able to relate to the kids, even as an adult, to say, yeah, I didn't necessarily grow up surrounded by the culture and be very strictly adhering to it, but there's an appreciation for it and such a respect. And it was nice to see sort of the older generation and the younger generation coming together to bridge historical gaps, even a really cool treasure sort of story. So I like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was saying it earlier too, like, I spent I don't know, it's no longer most of my life the older I get, but like I was born and raised in Hawaii, and having moved away, like being disconnected from the culture, I've found people with Hawaii roots here, and we try to, stay connected as much as we can, but it's not the same as at home. But yeah, I mean the language thing is a big one. I try as much as I can, but without actually, having other native speakers to like practice with on a regular basis, it's hard to to keep it up. So
right.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Crown brought up a really good point too. Like, so I remember during the credits at the end, they do like a little bit of dancing and stuff like that. And I mean, you always dance in the credits. Who cares? That's part of celebrating the movie. But I like how it wasn't like monetized. You know what I mean? Like, and I do feel like that. Like you have, I don't know, Ono's Hawaiian barbecue, right? Like, okay, that's cool. But then you'll have like some place that has like a tiki night or whatever, and it like monetizes a culture. You know what I mean? And it becomes a commodity as opposed to like celebrating the culture or whatever. And so I like the fact that when they did dance or when there was music or whatever, right, even though it was like in small portions and it really was just to celebrate the film, you could tell it was for that purpose. It wasn't like to draw in like, oh, hey, let's draw in the tourists because like this is what we want. And this is, oh, it's like a tiki night. Like it was really culturally respectful. And that was dope. And I love how they made fun of like, I love Jurassic Park, but I love how they made fun of Jurassic Park and Lost. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is what everybody comes to see. This is where they film Lost and blah, 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 that whole deal. Like, I love poking fun at that to be like, nah, this is how people who are there really feel. You know what I mean? Like this is like a real thing. I thought that was super dope too.
Yeah, and Kualoa Ranch is
I agree.
Beautiful. Yeah. Go ahead, sis. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just saying I agree. And I actually thought for me, image is important, especially on the big screen or the little screen or even tinier screens on the phone. And so I really thought that ending credit scene was so special because when they did a part where, they were zooming in on certain characters, laughing and having fun, there's just a really small section where they zoomed out and you kind of were looking down on everybody being silly and just having a great time. And a sea of brown people, and it was so beautiful because it was seeing brown people in a very positive light, and like you said, Brian, not just in the traditional sense where everybody has to have on hula skirts and leis, right? But they were just in some sort of enjoying life and just being normal, like being regular people, not sort of this monolith and sort of this like really predictable kind of scene. It was, for me, imagery, like I said, is so important. And that was a really powerful scene for me. It was beautiful, I thought.
Yeah, I really liked it too. I hope that this means that, we're going to get more content like this because it's so needed. And most importantly, to incorporate writers who come from these backgrounds, to keep the stories authentic. I think if they can continue to do that, then, they'll just continue to find success. And it actually motivates me to keep going. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I need to write some more stories. My children's book, I've been so busy. I haven't, written a story in a while. So I'm like, I need to get back to that too.
It's crazy that in like
yes,
2021, like in 2021, we're still humanizing each other. Like that's crazy to think, right? But like, I don't know, there's such a depth of culture across the board that again, it makes it crazy. It's like, well, how did we not know that they didn't, they don't just do, like you said, hula skirts and leis. Like, well, duh, you know what I mean? Like we should all know this by now, but there are so many people that don't. There are so many people that live in this kind of, I don't know, crazy. they live in the world where we attacked the Capitol because we didn't win an election. But you've got this whole other cross section of people that have such a depth of humanity and heart and haven't gotten the place to show it on screen, unless it's okay, it's Black Panther. Oh, great. Okay, I love Black Panther. Don't get me wrong, but like then you get your one, right, or then you get The Rock and star in whatever The Rock is in. But then they've not that he's done it, but they've tried to make it like, well, no, The Rock is like different. He's The Rock, you know what I mean? And it's like, nah, fam, he put something cultural in every one of his movies, like every single time. Like he won't sign on unless he does that. But you still have the ones and twos that you can pick, and you're like, well, like in 2021, why are we still here? Like, why are we not just celebrating all these beautiful fucking things? You know what I mean? That right. You got the New Zealand All Blacks, again, a team who I love, right? And they can do the haka, and it's like this great thing. But then you're like, oh, hey, Jason Momoa, you guys do it too. Like well, what? No, bro. They're like, there's so much more depth and so much more cultural significance to everything that's happening. And it's crazy that in 2021 that we're still having firsts, and we're still like, this is the first movie of its kind like that. Like what? Like, what? That doesn't even make sense. Like what? Come on, bro. We should have fucking 50 of them. You know what I mean? 100.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, there's another part too, is that I think there are stories out there, but it's just, they don't have the broad attention, right? Like we were kind of, I was on a thread, what were we discussing? I think we were talking about this specific haole person or white person that is basically started a news kind of outlet kind of thing. And it was going back and forth about whether that was good or bad. And someone had made a comment on like, well, we don't see any, like Kanaka, or local people standing up to do it. And somebody had made a comment where like, no, hold on, it's not that there's no desire to do it. It's just that this specific person has the resources to do it. So that's why you see him, right? So it's not like there's a lack of want or a lack of desire, a lack of motivation, a lack of pride, within the people. You're just talking about people who don't have the resources for it. So I think that relates here too. Like I'm excited that it's on Netflix, the platform that everybody can see and enjoy, and it, like spark some more broad interest in these stories. And hopefully Netflix will see that, like, these are stories that people can enjoy and will enjoy, because we've also seen and heard a lot in the media, like, or from folks who are in the industry, like, oh well, we don't think an Asian story can be successful, or that's not gonna quite work. Like it's like, well, have you tried? Stop trying to whitewash everything. Like, no. I don't know. No,
I agree. I totally agree. And I know you brought up Black Panther, Brian, a few seconds ago, but I'm a huge Black Panther fan. Like even before the film, I was into the comic books and had the action figures. That's just me. But one of the things that I really appreciate the film was that, I know I'm such a nerd, but was not just that the beautiful imagery and the great storytelling and the fact that it's a huge Marvel character with a screen full of people, beautiful people of color, but it was one of those where there was people who wanted to tell not just that, so many other stories, right? But if you don't have the financial backing, if you don't have this sort of big name backing behind you, it's like your story, even though it's beautiful and even though it's powerful, didn't get to be seen. But I noticed after seeing Black Panther do so well, not only domestically, but internationally, I noticed that other outlets, not just Netflix, but Amazon Prime and all these other Hulu out here, when they started doing their either new series or new product, they started at least featuring people of color. So I was happy to see not just more brown people in this film and it be a positive film and not a school one, but also I looked on Netflix last night. It was like 2:00 in the morning, and the film actually was number 6 in the nation.
Yep.
And I was like, what? So it just goes to Black Panther to get rid of that old school Hollywood stereotype that says, people in the regular public don't want to see a person of color in a lead, and we can see him in support. but only if they're stereotypical, only if they're Jason Momoa pretending he's from Hawaii, only if they're an African American who can only be the comedian and the comedic, outlet or whatever, comedic relief in the film. And that's all we can do is just be funny as Black people, because I'm African American and Hawaiian and Native American. So it's sort of nice to see myself reflected in these different facets of myself reflected in different ways in the big screen. And I'm like, listen, 38 years old right now, right? This is the first time I'm seeing stuff like this. And then I thought, this is the first time a lot of people are seeing stuff like this. So I'm just so glad that my nieces and nephews can grow up seeing these images as normal and as accepted and as beautiful, right? I don't know. I just get really excited. It was just, the film was so done. It was really great storytelling. And I love how they incorporated multiple generations. It wasn't just the children. It wasn't just the mom. It wasn't the grandpa, right? And so in terms of marketing this to a larger audience, now you have more age groups that can appreciate the story from different aspects. So I just thought it was brilliantly done. It was exciting, clean. It didn't have to put a whole lot of sexuality in it for it to be cool or for it to, rate so high on Netflix. So I love the film. I love the storytelling, the age differences, the generational gaps, and them showing bridging and healing relationships. And then them just showing Native Hawaiians and then others that live, in mainland U.S. who kind of are disconnected from the culture, because I think other cultures can relate to that. It's not just a Hawaiian thing,
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
I'm on a team. Finding ʻOhana was awesome.
I like being able to see everything you said, because you're 100% right. Also, we got to see these people as majestic, right? No one of color was subservient in the movie, which a lot of times that's in, even subconsciously, obviously Black Panther, right? Super majestic. Everybody gets to be majestic there, right? So I love that. And like I said, I love Black Panther too. I love that this is like a regular movie, right? It's not a superhero. It's not an epic, blah, 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 blah. But no one had to be subservient. They were just regular people. They were majestic. They were about their culture. They were powerful, right? And most of the time when you get powerful people of color, they've got to be evil. They've got to be the bad guy, or there's, you know what I mean? Even if I'm a big, cop movie guy, right? Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, you can name it. I've probably seen it. Even in those, right, where you got we did a diversity hire and you got a Black cop there. He's always the dirty cop. You know what I mean? You don't ever get the person of color gets to be powerful and good very, very few times, right? You're gonna get your Denzels, you're gonna get the big guys, right? But you can't not have them do that. But it's so very rare where we get to just have. It was a majestic movie. I liked there was another movie called, God, I think it's The Wilder People. God, I can't remember the exact name, but I think that's it. And it's from New Zealand. And it's an amazing movie, right? And it's another one of those kind of stories. It's obviously an island story, and you have all these things happening in it. But again, it's one that celebrates the culture, and people get to be majestic. They get to be it's a shame, right, that I'm saying it, but they get to be human. They get to be who they are when they walk off the set. You know what I mean? As opposed to the comedy relief, as opposed to always the pratfall, you know what I mean? Always the best friend. They get to be people with nothing added extra. They don't have to be super, or don't have to be a kung fu movie, nothing. There's a regular movie, it's a treasure hunt. We got some kids going to find some treasure, and it's fucking amazing. I love that. To me, you can't beat that.
And I love everything you just said, and I loved how the movie started out with a strong girl power presence. It started off with that, and that was consistent throughout the film. So not only do you have people being who they are in their natural element and majestic, but this little girl was actually really smart. I mean, even when they lost the journal that they were following within the cave, she still sort of remembered this story based on how her mind pulls together puzzle pieces and was able to, her family and friends, get out. It was a team effort, definitely. But I loved how Peely was such a strong character as a little girl and pretty much the star of the show. And I'm like, how often do we get to see?
Yeah.
You know, she's a little girl. She didn't fit the regular Hawaiian stereotype. She was, I think Brooklyn was where they were raised at. So she had some of that swag, you know. She wasn't trying to take no mess. She was willing to fight people. You know what I'm saying? It was like something that we could relate to. It wasn't like, oh, this nice little girl raised on an island with her grandma. And you know what I mean? Feely was like, no, I'm from these streets and I'm really smart. And I like adventure and I like treasures. And I'm interested in this really cool story that my grandpa even knows about. You know what I mean? I thought that was so cool. Seeing people like being majestic in their element, but still being them, being human. You know, you saw the strong single mom, what? But she wasn't single because she had a functional marriage. I like that. And I think a lot of people are watching movies, they don't think necessarily of that element, but it's like those images and the story, they have those subliminal messages that we actually do walk away with the film with, even our little ones. So to see that mom working hard, seeing her mend her relationship, her family, and trying to relate to her kids more on a kid level, because she's mom and provider and making all the decisions, and then to bring her kids into one of the most important decisions probably of their family's life. I mean, that was so dope to me, you know?
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, so speaking as like an E kind of guy, like I won't, like I said, like I was watching and I was like, that was me. Like if you talk to my sister, she's like, she texted me like as I was watching the movie, like, yo, fam, like she just was in the movie and you didn't tell me, because I'm definitely like that kind of like, you know what I mean, that kind of guy. And to see Hana getting his face, right? Like I said, I'm that kind of guy, and that's the kind of female that like that kind of guy needs. Right? You're flipping out like, oh man, you should pause this, like you're on fire. And then like some girl who's obviously smaller than you in every way, shape, or form gets in your face, is like, shut up, act like an adult, go over there and apologize. And you be like, all right, man, I'm gonna go apologize because I want to, not because you told me to.
Right.
You know? Because that's really what it is, though, you know? So I thought it was dope. It was super. I can't even tell you how many times it's happened to me. Like it's super authentic. You know what I mean? And I love that. I love that.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I could totally relate to that dynamic too, because well, he probably won't like me talking about it, but my husband's kind of like
we know it's true. It's we all know.
In a good way. You know, it's just the thing that you have, it's like, you know, getting to know people's personalities and how to, you know, navigate them, right? Like, so kind of going back to like what you were saying about the mom and like having them involved in the decision making, like that was so great, you know, because if that can be, you know, that's a lesson that people can take away just like in life too, you know, like when you're in a leadership position or, you know, whatever, you're helping a group of people trying to get them to come to agreement on something, right? Like letting them know that their input matters, you know, in this decision, and we're all going to make this together because it's something that's going to affect all of us, and we're going to have to live with this, right? And it's not an easy one, but let's talk about it, you know. So I really like that.
Yeah, the scene in the hospital with her and her dad, Leilani, the mom, the dad, when they were forgiving, I was like, this is strength right here. This is strength, because like those are not easy conversations to have after your husband died. You raising 2 kids in New York by yourself. Not easy, and you feel like you weren't there for your dad, and your dad feels like he's not there for you. It's easier to run away from the situation. And they said in the film, I think it was 11 years since they had addressed the issue since her husband passed away. And you know, and so that's not easy to like honestly talk about. And of course, with the magic of Hollywood in the movies, that scene was like 2 seconds long compared to some conversations. I have to take like 2 years to heal from because but I love to see, again, not positive imagery. Yes, there was a negative story, but they were able to bring it together positively, because people of color aren't just all violent. We aren't just all warriors, or like you were saying, Brian, like the police, you know, in the in these films, this was like this is a real life story reflecting real life things that people in every day have to deal with. So I loved the reconciliation, because in doing that, they were able to bridge those age gaps between them, like mother and daughter and father. But then also they realized that if we meant who we are as a family, it's kind of hard to tell the kids that they got to do the same thing, and to be there for them when they're this magical mountain, if you will, full of treasure. And treasure, the treasure wasn't just treasure, So I just really appreciate that dynamic, because again, I want our young people to be able to grow up seeing these images and normalizing them.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely. Yeah, I really enjoyed all the, the different points of views that you guys are bringing up, because it's just so relevant, so relatable. And then like Kimo, which was what brought them to Hawaii, was him having a heart attack. And I just thought it was so hilarious, because how older people are stubborn about, their health issues. Like, you should be on bed rest. And here he is out, going on an adventure with his granddaughter, so it's like, it just shows that, how much he really loves his family. And while he wasn't like explicitly saying it, his actions were like, what was showing it. And that really touched me, because it reminded me a lot of my dad. Like, he wouldn't come out and, he would say it. He would absolutely, recognize that, yes, I love my family and I will do whatever it takes to protect them. But he was also very much a person who was all about the actions that he did. Like, he'll say it, but he'll also back it up with his word, which not everybody, a lot of people talk a good talk, but when it comes to actually like receipts, it's a little blank, it's a little empty. So I just really love that too.
I can say like one of my best experiences with my boys was like, I used to go over the house every day, like after work. Like we all worked. There was like 5 or 6 of us. 3 of them were cousins, which means they're brothers. You know what I mean? Like 2 others cousins, which means they're brothers, and then like me, like the one black dude. And so I mean, it was like a year and a half. And one of the most beautiful things, because we always, Pops would be around, and so we would talk to Pops. Hey, Pops, what's going on? We're gonna go drink, do whatever, blah 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 blah. And he was like the grandfather, like kind of that gruff kind of exterior, but like a real loving guy. And the way I found that out was like, we were going out one time and like we were just gonna go get some burgers or something like that. Like, we're gonna go get some burgers, and so we can stop to the house. Oh, hey, Pops, we're about to get some food. He was like, hey, Brian, you know what I like? And I was like, what? He was like, I like iced tea. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it happened that like one of the aunts, from the islands had come out, and she happened to be in the room, and she didn't speak like any English. So Pops looks at me, and she's kind of looking at me because she knows the boys. And Pops is like, oh, don't worry about him. That's my son. And I was like, but it was that like real, like, he would never say anything, right? Like he didn't really react like that. It's not like he would come out every day and say like he loved you or whatever, or even his kids and stuff like that. But in those moments, like, that's the moment that matters. Just like that, the treasure hunt, right? Like, he was just getting on her a second ago, but he's like, yo, let's go on this treasure hunt. Like, that's the moment where, I don't know about y'all, it got a little misty in my apartment. It was crazy. Like, between that and the hospital scene, it was like dusty or something. Yeah. But what I mean? Like, those are the moments, and probably everybody has a story like that if you think about it. Like that moment where someone who you don't expect to love you or care about you shows you just how deeply they do. And to pull that off in a movie and it not like look fake as fuck, you know what I mean? Like, come on, man. That, to me, they just hit every note,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It was some great storytelling, like really legit. And it was 2 hours long, but it didn't even feel like it, because the storytelling was good and it was relatable. Yeah. And it all connected. It wasn't just like all over the place. And you like, when is this movie? That was legit. And can we talk about, speaking of storytelling, can we talk about the little moment of comic relief that maybe it's the kid in me that really liked these moments where Pee-wee was doing the voiceovers for the actors who were playing the people in the journal? I thought that was so cute. Sis did that. She did that.
Yeah,
just
she
have
had
those
me
two
my favorite
dudes
moments
playing
in
it
the
out.
Oh.
The guys that they had playing it,
Yeah,
it's like
that
not
was.
only is she doing it, but them picking up her mannerisms and acting it out. I was like, this
I know,
is
right?
hilarious.
It was like it reminded me of Drunk History, right? Like the style of storytelling, but it's so
Yeah.
impactful because you know that there's inconsistencies in the storytelling because voice doesn't match like the time period, the costumes that they're wearing. Like it's this little 9-year-old girl, and these men are like, "Yeah, dope." You know, they don't know what dope is. Like, it's cute. I like that. Those are my favorite parts.
Yeah, no, that was really funny. And I just thought it would be so cool to be those guys, like, like, let's go to treasure hunt, and acting like, yeah, they're gonna beat you up and with these candlesticks. And I was like, that's so cute.
That was cute.
Oh man.
I hope the kids liked it too. The kid in me loved it. I was like, I could so relate to this. Because it made the story less dry than just saying, there's a journal that my grandpa gave me. Let's read every page. You know what I mean? Like that could have got real boring real quick. But it didn't.
Yeah.
Think about how many times they've actually failed trying to make a second Goonies. You know what I mean? Or I mean, the Goonies. I love the Goonies. I'm 40 years old this year. Like I grew up on the Goonies. Me and my boys on the coast thought we were the Goonies growing up, right? Like, nope, we had the bikes and everything. Like, we still were able to go outside. You know what I mean? Like, real talk. So I get it. Like, but if you think about the time period when Goonies came out till now, and how many movies they've tried to make like as spiritual successors to Goonies and failed miserably, and then this real, authentic, dope, hilarious story is the one, man. Like, this is it. That.
Yeah. I mean, it was number 6 on Netflix in the US. Like, it was number 6. That's good for like.
I think it jumped up now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like either 3 or 4 right now.
Really?
Yeah, it jumped up.
Look, I'm about to look. That's so good because most of the actors and actresses, they're not like household names who you would know.
Right.
So this is giving people like young actors exposure that they never had before. That's so cool.
That's actually one of the things that I love the most about this movie is just like the young actors and giving them this broad awareness and broad platform for folks to see their talents, and they're only going to get better. And as I was like looking up some of the characters, ʻOhana's character, his name is Alex Iono. He's actually a singer. So I think like when he had those singing parts, like that's actually him singing. He's not.
So too.
Yeah.
Say it again.
I think so too. I think him and the young lady Hannah. I think they both. Excuse me. They both were so good at the singing parts. It wasn't meant like the film. I don't know that it was meant to be a musical, right? But it was so nice that whoever the writers were and the directors allowed them to express that talent. And it goes back to another point that you made, Brian. People just showing how majestic they are. You know what I mean? The regalness, the fact that not only was there this female character, the little Peely and her mama and Hannah too, but that these kids are talented. Like they're not just acting; they can sing too. And side note, I just did look it up. Number 2 in the nation. You guys are correct.
Yes,
Number 2. That's really good.
Yes, that's amazing.
I also like that.
And not Bridgerton down to number 4.
I like that they wrote a story too, and it had links. Okay, so people of color, when we get links to Juilliard in a movie, it's because they're down on their luck and they're the poor people that we've got to give a scholarship to Juilliard because otherwise they'll never make out the hood. I like the fact that she was good and she was like, nah, like I'm staying here because of family. I have nothing to do with that. Like family is more important. Like I got these skills. It's all good. You know what I mean? Like I said, no one was subservient. She didn't have to. She wasn't, crying or going and begging the Juilliard, please let me in. You know what I mean? Come on. You can't put a price on that for me. And Alex, man, I followed his not like religiously, but I followed his YouTube career. That dude could sing. That dude could blow. Like he's dope.
Oh, really?
Dope. Yeah. He's got quite a few videos out. Yeah, he's Yeah, he legit. he could blow.
Yeah, I
Making
mean, he has
beats, all of that. Like I said, for real. Yeah,
I
right.
need to follow. I
Telling
need to
you.
follow.
yeah, he has like
I need to follow the daddy, okay? Whoever cool, y'all him on Instagram
yeah, he has
with his
like
fine self.
oh my gosh, yeah, no, he is a good looking man. A well put together Kanaka. That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
See, but he be the ones. Okay, so
Right.
let me tell y'all about my issue when I was growing up. My issue is that all the good looking ones, like the father, always ended up being my family. And I'm like, you know what? What is a girl supposed to do around here?
Well, side note, sis, introduce me, okay? Because if they're looking like him.
Yes. No, I mean, I would have girls would like hit me up all the time for my cousins. They're like, oh my God, do you know Kala? And I'm like, yep, that's my cousin. Oh my God, he is so fine. Can you? I'm just like, oh Lordy.
Like, I am not a dating app, okay?
Right.
That's my
Y'all can introduce yourself. Kala, here's so and so. Go ahead. Go ahead. John, go ahead.
Right.
No, but yeah, just so much goodness about this movie. I really, really, really hope this launches, more and more and more and more and more and more stories like this. Everyday stories, very easily, easy to relate to, and kind of what Latoya said, like you don't even have to be Hawaiian. This is a story that you can relate to culturally. While it's not your particular culture, very similar struggles and similar cultural gaps that can be found, throughout the diaspora. So yeah, definitely.
Look, we've been relating to
excellent film.
Fucking 12th century European stories my entire life and everybody's entire life. Like we can definitely use to spread out some and to really have I like that this was presented just as a story. It was just presented as a movie and not a specific subgenre movie so that they could disqualify it or put an asterisk. It's just a movie that stars these people that is just that dope, and it's a story that you're going to have to get used to. Like this is the new world, and you're going to have to let people in and understand that they're here and they're great.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. So one other thing that I'll touch back on, I think Latoya, you mentioned it, was the multi-generations in the movie. And to me, that just captures so much of like what makes Hawaii culture great. It is because of like, the interactions between the different generations. And, it's always so interesting to see how the younger and the older, try to connect and, find those relationships, especially because like culturally, historically, whatever, traditionally, I guess, the grandchildren actually spent a lot of time with the grandparents. So it was just so awesome to see, Pili create that relationship with her grandfather. And I don't know, for me, it was just like, oh, yes.
Yeah. I like that too. And like the connection to the ancestors, how it's not, we're living in 2021, but the connection to our ancestors, whether they be like people who more recently passed away in the past decade or people who passed away hundreds of years ago, like connection in my mind still exists. And we still talk about it and normalize it and make it acceptable. So it may not, in some cultures, that may not be a thing, but for many cultures across the globe, not just Hawaiian culture, but across the globe, that is a thing. You know what I mean? It's your ancestors that prayed you through things, or it's your ancestor that found wisdom and information on dangerous things to stay away from. Like the what was it? The night something. What did they call them in the film? The night marchers with the blue flames. Like, yeah. So it's like there's so much to learn from, even though our elders can be what we think is boring sometimes, there's so much to learn from them. And why it's really cool. Like historically, a lot of kids, they grew up around the grandparents while the parents were at work, kind of thing. And in some cultures, it still is a thing. But as the world became more globalized and more Eurocentric, that sort of connection to family was kind of either completely pushed out, or it was just, even if it wasn't, yesterday was being pushed out. It's one of those things that got lower and lower on the priority rungs of society, whoever defines society. So it was nice to see that they acknowledge that dynamic and the failures of it, even in trying to move away to be successful. And even some of the successes of it, but it kind of, the story came back around full circle with them being like, you know what, we need to go home. We need to be with family. Our grandpa shouldn't just be out here having a heart attack all by himself and then that's it, which is what society has told us that is supposed to happen. But really sometimes in that healing and recovery process, if the grandpa broke his ribs, sometimes what you need is family to push that healing process along. You need the young ones with all the energy around the elders to share that energy with them, So I don't know, I could get real deep like that because I'm a believer of it, but it was nice to see that somebody not only thought to put that in the movie, but to make it such a puzzle piece to tell that particular film story.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna need you to log in right on time next time because I definitely was, man, we could spend like 30, 40 minutes on this because that's what I started with. Oh my God, I need you to log in on time next time. But
I had such a bad headache earlier.
Right now. So my phone is about to die. I'm sorry, I gotta leave you. This is an awesome conversation. ʻOhana, please have us back. Let us talk about some other stuff. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes,
thank you for providing this space. But yeah, I got like I said, I got to run before my phone dies on me. So I love you guys. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys later.
All right, Brian. Thanks for joining. Oh my gosh. Yes, I'm so glad you were able to jump on.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm so sorry for being late. I did not mean to do that. I ended up taking a 3-hour nap, thinking that I was like, oh, I might sleep for 15 minutes. Let me take some Tylenol, get this headache gone, 3 hours later. So I guess my body needed it, but I felt bad that I was late.
No, it's all good.
Thank you so much for this platform, though. It's so nice to have like-minded people to talk to instead of just being like, well, I like this movie, but if I post about it, ain't nobody gonna comment. So
right. Yes, no, I think this was a good one because it's a good intro for people who, people will love it because of the Goonies connection, right? But for folks who are not familiar with Hawaiian culture, to see a little bit of it, right, and be like, oh, okay, I can kind of see, how this is relatable and stuff. So I hope they continue to make it. I hope people watch the movie, guys. Let's get the right. Let's see if it can hit #1. That would be so awesome.
I know. So excited that we're #2 though. So excited for that. And release. Definitely. There were no commercials really. There were little commercials that you see on Netflix, but there wasn't like commercials all over the internet and all over TV. There were some. It didn't have a publicity as like a Hollywood movie would have had, right? But it's still #2. So yes, everybody keep watching so we can make it to #1. That would be awesome.
Definitely. All right. So we still have people joining. So if the folks who are watching, our listeners and our viewers have questions or things you guys want us to talk about a little bit, I think I'm okay to stay on a little bit longer, sis, if you are.
Yeah, I'm good. I want to hear from people too. We got to talk about what we liked, ʻOhana and Brian before he left and myself. So I'd like to hear what were other people's favorite parts of the film or what did they appreciate it about it the most? That would be cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when did you actually move away from Hawaii?
So I wasn't born and raised there like you did. I was born and raised in Ohio. I wish I was.
Okay, so you have family connection.
Yeah, family. My grandma was from there. Yep. She was born and raised Native Hawaiian. So we were able to like do our family tree and stuff back to had a billion kids, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, that's minor detail. But anyway, so, you know, and Princess, I think Liliuokalani was definitely like in our bloodline too. So it was kind of cool to see that and to know that growing up. But definitely I was in Ohio in a really small town where there wasn't any people of color, period. I think my grandma was the only person of Hawaiian descent there. And then there was like one Guamanian family. So our family like bonded together because there wasn't really an island presence there. I mean, it is Ohio, right? Northeast Ohio. Right. Super cold, snowing all the time. So yeah, so that there was like very little connection to like the actual island. So like once my grandma passed away, I think she passed away in 2014, 2015. I decided that because that connection wasn't there and I wasn't necessarily born into an environment where the culture was like very, I don't know, like preserved, then I was like, you know, go to Hawaii myself and try to see if I can find some family members. So I did. I wasn't, you know, the sad part is I was not able to track down any blood relatives, which is my whole point in going. But I still was able to experience the different islands and experience the culture for myself, not just the little, you know, touristy parts where you stay in a resort and then everything's like super touristy. I mean, I did stay in a resort, but I was like, I want to be where the locals are because that you know. So it was nice to be able to be in touch, and hopefully I could go back soon. But I did cry on the flight back excuse me, to Atlanta because I was like, I felt at home. I was like, listen, I need some poi on a regular basis.
Me too.
Like, listen, I can't just have this for a trip. But anyway, yeah, it was nice to connect.
Well, that's so cool because then you can definitely relate to Pili and ʻOhana, you know, as someone who, you know, didn't grow up there, but have that family connection. So that's amazing. I'm glad we were able to get your perspective for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I could totally relate to the kids of the film. Totally. Because I was like, dang, I feel like, I mean, I'm extra grown now, but I felt like that was me. Like, I felt like I was watching myself because, yeah, I like to cosplay and I like to do all these other things that are my hobbies and read and collect comic books and stuff. But there's parts of me that come to life whenever I'm connected with the culture. So Black Panther for me, Moana, the animated Disney film, when that came out, your namesake, basically. Yes, I need to cosplay Moana. I need to cosplay Black Panther, which I do both of them. Yes. I might need to cosplay Pili next. Just saying, I don't know. But yeah, listen, I'm gonna connect on all levels.
Yes, absolutely. I love it.
Yeah,
it'd be easy to cosplay Pili, like just throw on a hat with what you call that shirt, a raglan shirt or whatever. And I just love that she was a tomboy too.
Yeah, me too. And she was like, listen, this is who I am unapologetically. And that she was like, I'm going geocaching and adventures. Y'all leave me alone while I do my thing. And she just, you know, so I was like, okay, sis, okay, little sis, I see you.
Yeah, definitely.
On the people who are watching, do we have any questions from them?
No, they're kind of quiet, so they're just. I think they're just enjoying.
Okay, that means we made all the points.
I think we did good. Okay.
We did.
But yeah, so for folks who are watching, if you like Finding ʻOhana, then you'll probably like my children's book that I wrote. It's a start of a series. It's called The Adventures of Nakoa and Nohea. It takes place in Hawaii. And it's, you know, it incorporates, again, just like Papa Kimo, it's Papa Ray. It's a story that was inspired by my family. And the two children are Nakoa and Nohea, and they're going on a fishing adventure with their papa. So if you would like to check that out, I dropped the link in the comments. Feel free to check that out on the site. I will sign a copy for you. if you would like to get it for your family. Just like the movie, well, the story is a children's story that I wrote, but it can be enjoyed by the entire family. It's not a long, drawn-out story, obviously, because it's a children's story, but the message of the story is, relatable for all ages. It's about kindness and looking out for the people in your community, which is very relevant right now, especially given the challenges that we're dealing with COVID. So I hope you guys will check that out. And yeah, any closing?
I need a copy.
Okay, I will definitely get you one.
I want to support. So I'll go on your site and get my copy as well.
Appreciate you. Any closing thoughts before we end the show tonight?
Oh, I just want to say thank you so much again for providing a platform like this to be able to, push movies like this and encourage other people. If you have not seen it, Finding ʻOhana is a really, really great film. And it's something that I would feel comfortable with my mom or my grandma watching, or, I don't have any children, but like my nephews or other younger children to watch, because it is appropriate. It's not overly sexualized. It's one that's positive and something that's completely relatable. And there's humor in it too. They didn't make it dry. Everybody go watch it if you haven't watched it. If you have watched it, watch it again. And if you're busy, just press play, put it on mute so you still get the views. Okay, so we can try to make this film go to #1 on Netflix in the US.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Latoya, for joining us. And we'll also thank Brian and Crown, who were with us earlier. We really appreciate you guys coming on to chat with us about Finding ʻOhana. For all of our viewers and listeners, we hope you find your ʻOhana, whether it be true blood family or the tribe that resonates with you. Take care, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Have a great week, and we will talk to you soon. Ahui ho.